Good morning. My name is Nancy.
Well, good afternoon, and I want to welcome each of you for joining us today for our topic, which is families coping with dementia. We'd like to welcome you to the Elizabeth McGowan Training Institute and mmlearn.org, and we're grateful that you found us. And I even want to mention that we have folks on the phone with us today, and we're welcoming them as well. So I want to ask you, however, if you have cell phones and pagers and you're with a group, if you'll go ahead and please turn those down now, just as a consideration for other people in the room with you. I'm your presenter today. My name is Maria Wellish, and I am a registered nurse, and I'm also a licensed nursing facility administrator. Today you're going to find this program just a little bit different because usually we're just doing this as a live webcast without any consideration for contact hours. But after this presentation is done, there'll be a little bit of editing, and then this program will be made available for contact hours for nurses and nursing home administrators. And if you just keep checking the website, you'll be able to see that come up. And this is a service we hope to offer for more of the programs that we're doing. I want to tell you that when we do bring this up, it will be approved for 1.0 contact hours. So this program is approved for 1.0 contact hours for nurses. And the requirements for successful completion, participants must be present for the entire program. They are required to sign in. You'll be required to complete an evaluation, and also at the conclusion of the presentation, there may be a very short test. I want you to know there is no conflict of interest that have been evident in the development of the content for this activity by the planning committee members or presenters. There's no commercial support that has been received by the EMTI at Morningside Ministries for this activity. Also, in regards to disclosures, there's no endorsement of products, and there is no off-label use that's related to the content of the activity. What we do want you to know is even today and at any time, if you want to ask a question or make a comment, in the upper left-hand corner of your screen, you see a little bubble. It's an ask bubble. And at the top of the screen, if you'll just click on that, you can ask a question or make a comment at any time during the presentation. And later, when this is on demand, you can do the same thing and expect to get an answer within 72 hours. If you're watching this presentation live, you may also phone in a question. And today, the number that you'll use is 210-264-7000. So one more time, 210-264-7000, or just click on that bubble. And we really enjoy receiving questions from you and the participation that you share with us. As we said, dementia, and many times we've talked about this in different programs, and all of us would have to agree that this is one of those diagnoses that strikes fear in a family's heart, mind, and their soul. Of all the diagnoses that someone can receive, the only one that is known to create more anxiety than the diagnosis of dementia is that of cancer. And there would be people who would disagree with this and tell you they have higher anxiety with the thought of dementia than cancer. But cancer is known to be the #1 feared disease. When I always do research, I like to see what's currently happening and what's going on the internet and what are people doing in regards to evidence-based and best practices. The one thing I always find interesting is what's happening in regards to blogs. And I was going to take some time and read this to you, and I hope that you'll take a few minutes and look at blogs yourself. I want you to know that on the top of your screen is also something that looks like a little paperclip. And if you click on that, you can download today's PowerPoint, and you can also read some blogs that are on there, get the website where they're taken from, because you're going to find that this is a different type of support group for families, and that's what we're talking about. This blog happened to say, I personally get fed up with hearing all about his bowel movements or lack of them. I'm tired of hearing about diapers. I'm tired of every week or two him bringing out another treatment bottle or medication bottle saying he needs a refill. I have asked him not to eat in his bedroom as we live in a semi-rural area and we're prone to mice. He continues to eat in his bedroom. He hides cookies in his room so he can sneak food. This was one blog, and I want you to know it has had 12 responses when I first looked, and I think there's even more now. Go online, look at this blog, look at the responses, see the type of support that folks who are dealing with their loved ones at home, how they're helping one another. Every one of these responses won't be something you agree with, that's for sure. But many will give you some very unique ideas, and if nothing else, you surely won't feel alone. Here's another blog. It doesn't seem fair. My wife and I cannot go out to dinner, go on a vacation, or even go to friends because he will have a spell. When we were kids, our parents went out without taking us kids as long as it was for the adults. Now that we are adults, it seems like we are trapped. So again, I want to consider that you will be clicking on the link and seeing the responses because I don't want to just read those to you. I want you to kind of get a feel for all the responses and what people are sharing with one another. You're going to hear more about some of these common issues. One other, and we'll finish with this one, is like being put down with your siblings in the center of a nuclear reactor and being told, figure it out. And this happens to come from a book that we'll talk about in a few minutes, but this is pretty clear how people feel so frightened by this and so overwhelmed, being put down the center of a nuclear reactor. Most times when we talk in our training, we're talking about the care recipient or the person that has been diagnosed with dementia. Today, I want this to be different. I want this to be all about the family members that are affected by this disease, not the person who has the disease. And I want you to know we all are affected by this, and we're going to see in a few minutes it's not just the family members, it's also staff. It's the caregivers of the people with dementia. 1 or 2 generations ago, things looked a lot different. First of all, people didn't live as long. We know without antibiotics that many people died very early. Families didn't move as far away. They tended to be much closer geographically. And we also know that families tended to be much larger, so there were more people to share in the caregiving experience. There were no continuing care retirement centers. The word assisted living facility didn't even exist 1 or 2 generations ago. And the old folks' home was surely not called a skilled nursing facility. Interesting, when you go back in the literature, the word caregiving wasn't even used. It's very hard to find this word. And daughters were likely to be expected to be the one who would care for their aging parent. It was just a natural expectation. Where are we today? It's really different. Today's daughters are way less available for caregiving. And why is that? Well, the majority of the caregivers today are employed. These are about 40 to 46 years of age, employed women full-time who have to give up their jobs in order to provide caregiving. These women are starting their families later, a trend that started a number of years ago. We see more divorce, more single parents, way more untraditional households, and of course we know the geographic distance has increased as families have moved farther and farther away from their nuclear families. I don't want to forget to talk about sons, because we always used to see the woman as being the caregiver or the daughter, but today we're seeing more and more men that are providing direct care. And as a matter of fact, the statistics, most people will say it's 30%, but the very most recent articles that I was reading and that are the evidence-based protocols that people are using for training is it's up to 39%. So we're seeing a dramatic shift in men providing this type of care. We also can't forget, because we always think about children being the ones called to care, but we have to think about the spouses that are the caregivers. And one of my biggest concerns about this, we have to look at, and this isn't my biggest concern, but is the state of the marriage before the person was asked to call or called upon to provide this care. What is the state of the marriage? If there were problems in the marriage before, these may be just exacerbated. The other thing is, and I think this is the one that concerns me the very most that I see in the facilities where I work and consult, is the physical and mental ability to care. We so many times see somebody who's disabled caring for a family member who has dementia, or vice versa. And you see both people have limitations and they're providing care for one another. Because in many cases the children may not even be in the same city. The only time they see them is it Thanksgiving or Christmas, and mom and dad aren't traveling any longer. And so one family member is taking care of the other, the spouse. And I will say this is very interesting because it's when one of the parents dies